Skull Knight is not your friend. With the upcoming 365 chapter, there's only so much you can talk about until you just have to wait. But one thing that kept coming up, Skull Knight. Skull Knight is on the island, and there are possibilities of what he may or may not do. And so I wanted to make this video to kind of bring about that idea that might actually come true. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of why Skull Knight isn't your friend, you shouldn't trust him, and you shouldn't answer any of his texts or calls, is his history. His history is what defines him, like many of the characters. So who is Skull Knight? We are 99.9% sure he is King Berserk, from the oldest empire in Midland. There are so many things that go towards this. His armor looks like the skull. He used to wear the berserker armor. He was a king. He even said what you saw were the ends of a foolish king. There are many things we still don't know about him. He is quite possibly one of the most mysterious characters in Berserk. That goes not only just to his appearance, the way he speaks, what he is. We still don't even know, like, what is his essence? Is he an apostle? The brand doesn't bleed when he's nearby. Does he have a body? Is there flesh underneath his armor? These are all the things that we still don't know about. But what we do know is that he is something that has been lingering for many, many years, hundreds of years. The eclipse is an event that takes place every 216 years. So you can, of course, assume that he is extremely ancient, being the ruler of one of the greatest empires the realm has ever known, and being around when a god hand was just void and 4 other unknowns. He has been fighting this endless war against them after having been branded, I guess, himself. He is different from Guts in terms of his attributes, right? When he's around apostles, he doesn't have a brand that we see that bleeds. He is not susceptible to their attacks. He has no flesh to give. So there are a lot of things about him, again, extremely mysterious, that we'll probably not know anytime soon. But what we can talk about is the assumptions that we have about him through his actions. It is talked about endlessly, and it is a great narrative device for the story, is that Skull Knight is meant to be the parallel to Guts. We've all probably said it before, Skull Knight is what Guts could become if he continues down this road of revenge. Skull Knight has no body, he's lost everything. He doesn't even have the emotion to give to people anymore. Since losing everything, he still doesn't have the things that he fought for. He doesn't have emotion to give anymore. He doesn't have something to give back to his friends because he doesn't have any. Kind of sad, but he doesn't. He doesn't have any companions. He has no one to talk to. Berserk probably had many times where he could have turned back and chose a different path and probably could have been content. But he is someone who is literally fighting against the concept of evil, the idea of evil, and 5 literal godlike beings. Probably has gone through a lot of pain to get to the point where he is now, where he is an absolute machine of violence. He's a bit different from Guts, where he is refined, but I imagine he's not human anymore. He doesn't look like an absolute monster when he kills things. He doesn't seem like a beast that is untamed, but he is not human. And that is the one huge defining difference between the two. Guts at this point in the story is now looking after the things that matter to him the most, which is Casca, and even giving back to his companions. There are many people who would argue that Skull Knight does the same. He does things that he didn't have to do. But I kind of want to break it down and try and think, what if I was Skull Knight? What would I do? In the eclipse that Guts and Casca were privy to, he infiltrated and tried to attack Void. Was this something that he did intentionally out of rage? Was this something that he did intentionally to save Guts and Casca? There are many possibilities because he understands how causality works against with the God Hand. You can't change what will happen because that's how the God Hand have ordained things to happen. But he clearly knows that there are some small little differences you can make to achieve a different outcome. For example, he did go to Guts 1 year before the eclipse and warn him. Why did he warn him? Did he warn Guts because Guts could have stopped it? And I think the answer is he warned him because he wanted to prepare him for what was going to come. Skull Knight, could he have stopped it? Maybe. It's possible. He had the knowledge of who had the Egg of the King. He had knowledge who Guts was. So why couldn't he have just gone to Griffith, killed him, and essentially kept the Egg of the King for himself? Would someone have stopped him? I don't know. But maybe Skull Knight knew that even if he did stop it from happening, what would he have gained from it? he would have saved a group of people who he doesn't know anything about. And to him, I don't think that matters at all. I think to him, the eclipse is something that need to happen to forward his goals. Let's not forget that Skull Knight is a man bent on revenge. It's all he thinks about. It's all he probably engages with. The only time he engages with Guts is to pose a question to him. He doesn't tell Guts what he should and shouldn't do. He just tells him what is likely to happen, and these are your options. So let's assume that Skull Knight did let the eclipse happen, and let it happen so that he could take a Guts that was vulnerable, a Guts that was beaten, a Guts that was nearly destroyed down to his very core, and create a different kind of ally. We're getting very much into a mastermind five-head play, but Skull Knight is fighting a war, a one-man war against 5 godlike beings. He can't do that alone. But what if he had more than just him? What if there was 5 more of him? What if there was 10 more? What if there was 100 more of him fighting 5? And I think that's kind of his aim. There are many instances where he did save Guts, but he didn't save Guts out of necessity or knowing that he was going to die. He saved him because it was in his interest and he was there at the time to save Guts. Upon saving him from a being that he knew Guts could never beat, implies that he sees some value in keeping Guts around. He also never encourages Guts to go and do something else. And I think he encourages him to go do something, especially when he knows it's futile. He does tell him that at Elfhelm, Casca will be able to gain her memory, but it may not be exactly how you want it. And I think to him it was indifferent whether or not Guts was able to get Casca's mind back because she can no longer look at him. And Skull Knight sees that as, look at all the good you did and how pointless it was. The only real change will come when these 5 are dead. And especially when Guts saw the memories of him when he was the king, and even saying what you saw was the end of a foolish king. But what does that mean? Was it the choices he made or the lack of choices he made? Does Skull Knight look back at the version of him and realize, what a stupid idiot, what a fool for thinking that there was good in people? Was that a foolish king? Or was it a king who made choices that led him down this road? I think that Skull Knight, when he says that, thinks of a man who saw the good in people and is now embarrassed of the man he used to be, when he could have easily destroyed his enemies when he had the chance, but refused to because of his own personal feelings. And I think in his mind, that is foolishness. Skull Knight does tell him what would happen of the berserk armor if he continues to use it, but he doesn't dissuade him from it. He doesn't dissuade him from doing anything. He's someone who points in a direction and in a way subtly manipulates Guts to certain degrees. I think it's because in his mind that if you're going against causality, you have to fight dirty. And Skull Knight seems very chaotic good, very much ends justify the means. So now we know this idea of who he is. And again, I'm speculating on the things that we've experienced so far of who he is and what it is that he does. Let's not forget as well that he didn't stop Griffith's band from destroying Flora's house and destroying her. He didn't stop that, but he did encourage wearing the berserker armor. And he didn't stop Guts from wearing it, especially knowing the effects that that will have on a human being. So when it comes to where we are in the story right now, the situation, Guts has now been turned back to normal after being the Moonlight Boy for the Moonlight period of the story. Skull Knight is on the exact same island. I've already made a video talking about what might happen in chapter 365, the possibilities. I've read many theories of a lot of other people since then, and a lot of people always talk about what Guts and Casca will do. And what's great about that is that everyone has so many different ideas of what those characters would do. Everyone has 5 different opinions of what Griffith will do. Everyone has 3 different opinions about what Casca will do. And everyone has, majority 2, but a lot of others of what Guts will do. He'll either fight or he'll run to Casca. It's one of the 2 choices he's always had to make. Fight or let it go, right? And it's the biggest choice in the story for the character of Guts. What's great about the news chapter is that any of these things could happen. But if we look at Skull Knight and we know who he is, and we think of the person that Skull Knight is based on what I've talked about already in this video, what is it that Skull Knight would do? Exactly what he did at the tree. The Shiva reincarnation apostle that Griffith was at to create Fantasia. He thought he was going against causality. The time was right, but using the Sword of Absolution has created this new world that Griffith used to his advantage. And again, Skull Knight probably acted in haste. He probably acted out of emotion. He probably acted with anger. And that is something that we've seen Guts do many times and never worked out. Ever worked out in terms of trying to achieve his goals. Fighting against causality and fighting against things that are already fated to happen is something that is integral to the story and is somewhat of a motivating thing to go against the grain and achieve goals that you set out for yourself. But at the cost of your body, your life, and the cost of the lives around you is kind of the cautionary tale. And that's what Skull Knight again embodies. So if you think of Skull Knight in this situation where he sees a defenseless little boy, but knows in his heart and in his mind that that is his enemy, what reason is there to stop him? What reason is for him to not kill that child and take 5 down to 4? In my mind, that is something that Skull Knight would do without any second thought. He didn't do it when the child was still an apostle. He did warn at what it was and that it was not human. Now, within a human flesh to an extent, there is no malice, there is no kind of evil intent in the boy, but he is sharing a body with one who does have it. So when I think about Skull Knight and who he is, and whether or not you feel like he may be on our side, or maybe he's always trying to help Guts and Party, or at least try and hasten their journey to a peaceful end, I doubt he ever wanted them to come to Elfhelm to just stay forever. I imagine he wanted the party to come to Elfhelm to understand the futileness of their journey, having Casca not be able to see Guts at all, and realizing that nothing changed. To me, Skull Knight would absolutely, without any hesitation, immediately attack one of the 5 Gone Hand as soon as he senses a presence on Elfhelm. There is no doubt within my mind. And there's something that I feel like will dredge up a real conflict with Guts, and it works well thematically for the story. If Guts is continuously fighting between the urge for vengeance and letting it go and trying to follow his own path and his own dream and his own reason to live, then fighting Skull Knight is thematically on point. Skull Knight is the cautionary tale of what he could become. What is better than walking away from this, but trying to defeat the visual demon that's in front of you that is what you could become? I don't think it'll happen straight away. I don't think Guts will defeat Skull Knight in the next chapter. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that Skull Knight is not the protagonist's friend. He is in any sense a dual antagonist. He is an antagonist in some ways to the enemy, but also our main characters. And even though he may give a helping hand, he also has motives of his own. The ends justify the means, and if he's ever saved someone, it could essentially be for different reasons or ulterior motives. There are people he has saved without any other reason, but there is more that he could have done. So to me, Guts fighting the Skull Knight to protect Griffith, even though Griffith is the one who betrayed him, there is a young boy within that body who has a very strong connection to Guts for so many reasons, to him and his loved one both. We all know Guts would fight like hell to protect what he cares about, and he won't admit it, but he cares about that young boy. It would be such a great internal conflict for Guts to wrestle with the fact that the Skull Knight is out to kill Griffith, but at the same time destroy someone who can be extremely important to him and those he cares about. It is a great thematic conflict to have him fight the thing he could become. And that's something that I think maybe some of us never really expected to happen, but as we think about it more and more, it's really exciting to maybe see that how would he defeat this inhuman husk of a man who has embodied the armor he now wears. Skull Knight wants to see the world in black and white. He wants to see that the God Hand are bad and defeating them, whatever costs, matters. And I'm sure it'll slowly bring up his past now that he's at odds with Guts. Most character development should happen through conflict alone, right? And so with having realized how much of a foolish human he was, to him have to fight Guts and kill him just to create another version of himself, I think he's willing to do it. Skull Knight would rather have a man who would slowly become him than have someone who would oppose him and his ultimate goal. And that's my opinion. Again, you could totally disagree with me, but I really think this is something that could definitely happen. That's why I want to make this video. Please discuss, give me your comments, give me your thoughts. Am I actually insane? Is Skull Knight still your best friend? I don't know, I disagree. Genuinely, please let me know what you think. I'd love to hear all of them. And if you like this video, please, I think Skull Knight wouldn't mind a like, he wouldn't mind a subscribe, he'd definitely hit bell, he'd smack that bell like real hard, like it's Griffith. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you, and I appreciate it very much. My name's Mugen, as always, have a good one.